around the table and introduce and set our first name?
I'm Susan Meister, and I'm with Be Smart Read, which is the public education outreach program for Moms in Action. If any of you were at our introductory meeting, we introduced ourselves in our advisory council, and our connection with moms is that we work under the umbrella that Moms does as well. So Corey and I operate in different areas of the same organization, but we obviously connect very closely. So,
I'm Steve, I'm Salinas. Glad to be here.
I'm Kip, this is from Monterey, and this is the first of these meetings I've come to, so I know nothing about it other than the reputation of this particular group, which is why I was persuaded to, for heaven's sakes, want to join and find out what's going on.
Melanie Elkins at Carmel Valley, and I'm a mom, and this is a great issue.
I'm Denise from El Peninsula area, and I'm a mom and a grandmother, and just wanted to be in a local, something that I felt that I could be supportive of, instead of just sitting around feeling at home alone.
I know
something
that.
I can put into a little more positive, action, help educate.
I feel the same way. My name is Karen Valley. I live in Delray Oaks. I'm a parent and a teacher, and I've been on the Peninsula for about 25 years.
I should add, I'm a mom as well, and I'm from Carmel Valley.
Okay, I would like to read it's called a Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion grounding statement that is from Moms Demand Action, and it's supposed to help us all kind of come together and be in the same space. This is the grounding statement. We'd like to begin this meeting by sharing our statement of intention and purpose. Our intention is to foster a robust presence of diversity, equity, and inclusion of and for all individuals and groups choosing to join our efforts. Our purpose is to work together to decrease gun violence and increase public safety across our nation. In our meetings, events, and activities, we value diversity, we advance equity, and we demonstrate inclusion. We are a community. We are gun violence survivors, including victims and witnesses, change makers, and advocates who come together in partnership to work toward a future that is free from gun violence. Welcome, Wendy. When you get a chance, sign in. Okay, so I would like to acknowledge survivors of gun violence, and survivors are unfortunately so prevalent in our society, and whether you're a survivor can be a very private and intensely emotional fact. And so I'm not asking anybody to self-identify as a survivor. If you would like to, you may at any time. But I would just want to acknowledge, take a moment to think about survivors of gun violence, whether you have all your own personal experience with that, or know of someone who has, if that person is close to you, or just somebody in the media that you've been thinking about. I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge that and hold space for that person, for those people. Okay, thank you. Our focus today is a presentation called Fork Over the Facts. So we're heading into the holidays, and we all get together with loved ones and mixing it up more, and we see people that we don't necessarily see on a regular basis. And this is a time of year we tend to come in contact with loved ones and people that we don't see as often, who may hold really different views than we do. So you might be sitting at the table for your holiday gathering or office, holiday party, and so the topic of gun violence comes up. That person may be a strong gun rights supporter and may have all these talking points from the NRA and the gun lobby running through their head, because the NRA does a great job with giving their members talking points. But Moms Demand Action has more volunteers than the NRA. The NRA has about 5 million people, and Moms Demand Action has almost 6 million volunteers. So the purpose today, and then purpose today is to have a conversation. This is a very informal discussion. Well, I'll present the gun lobby myth because they're not true. And I will give a statement that is based in fact that can be used to refute that. So whether or not you use these in the conversation, just reading through this presentation and getting prepared for this meeting made me feel more confident in having these discussions. So I apologize because these slides are amazing. I didn't make them, but they are really cool. They have like plates and turkey and things like that on them. But I didn't realize that I needed a projector to show them to you. So.
Can you scoot in closer?
Yeah, I can do that.
And just look out.
The first myth is the only thing that stops a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun. Got a bad guy with a gun, you definitely need a good guy, right, to stop mostly those guys. But if we had more guns in our country, if guns really made us safer, we would be the safest country because we have more guns than people in our nation. So if we had more guns, then we would be the safest country on earth. But instead, we have a gun homicide rate that is 25% higher than that of other high-income countries. 25% higher. Great point. Here in the notes talks about the New York City Police Department, who is by many accounts the most highly trained police force. And even they will acknowledge that in stressful situations is when it matters, that their ability to perform with their firearms is diminished. So you know that no matter how much you train, your peak performance is in training. And when you're put in the real world in stressful situations and the light may not be right and you have your emotions and all of that, that your ability to meet your target is not 100%.
Like
So-
what happened yesterday in New Jersey.
You
They
wanna
had
talk
a big
about that?
shootout. Well, and then there were 3 bystanders in the supermarket or kosher deli or whatever it was that were killed. So with all that firepower, they still weren't able to save those 3 people.
Right.
And I don't know if they caught that person. Or there were 2 people. I know 2 people died, but I don't know. I thought one was on the
There were
news.
2 that were, because the police officer approached the van when it was indicated that they were planning to then go into that, and they killed the police officer straight off and they carried on with their plan.
Yeah.
So,
Stray
no
bullets.
harm, yeah.
Father of 5 right before Christmas.
Right.
And he was he was instrumental, he was on a task force to reduce gun violence in that neighborhood. So it's a big loss.
Those stories, they're just so much. There's, story of the young man recently, I don't even remember where, like Philadelphia maybe, and he was literally coming out of his training to be a violence interrupter. Violence interruption is a program that's proven pretty effective, I believe, to stop the cycle of violence. And he was coming out of a meeting to be trained, and he was doing really well. And his trainers were saying that he had so much potential that he could connect with anybody. And he came out and he was shot and killed. Yeah.
It's a big loss.
Any more thoughts on this one?
I can't help getting caught up on numbers. Maybe we should defer this, but it doesn't quite make sense. I mean, if our rate is 25% more, but I believe we have more than 25% more guns than other people. It's probably 3 or 4 times more. You see what I mean? So those numbers don't quite make sense. I mean, so then that would say that we really, I mean, if we have 300 times more guns, our rate of violence should be 300 times more, not 25% more.
Well, not everybody is using guns violently. I mean, there are a lot of gun owners who have guns for other purposes. It's the rate of gun violence, which is intolerable compared with other countries, but it's not proportional in that way.
Yeah.
There are a number of
You
NRA
see what I'm
members who are
saying?
actually
Yeah.
responsible gun owners.
Yeah, and I think we should validate that there are a lot of people.
Yes, we do. We are not questioning anybody's Second Amendment rights. We're simply saying that we're trying to reduce the violence that comes with it.
No, I totally support this. It's just, I can't help, like, when somebody mentions,
Numbers.
if somebody mentions a number, I'm like, what number was that again?
Well,
I'm sorry, I can't help it.
That's why we need you.
Yeah, I'm just kidding.
But the number has to be put in context.
Number has to be put in
So you're saying
context. That's
The
right.
way, if I understand you correctly, you could, there's so many ways you could do statistics.
Oh.
I have a background in statistics, so I get that.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm an engineer, so I'm like, don't, you mention a number, I'm like, what?
But
What's that?
let's
Yeah.
say, given the number of firearms that there are,
Right.
our homicide rate should be 300 times higher. That's just for example, for purposes of discussion, and it's only 25%. So I mean, we shouldn't be giving ourselves a pat on the back that it's only 25%. That the maximum capacity would be 300%. It's still too high.
Oh, it is, and then successful homicides, I mean, there's just so many things, but it's like, so I think we may want to be careful about a number like that in this slide, because people like me are going to be like, what? You see what I mean? It's like, that may not be a great number to lead off with.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, one thing you can do is you can go to the Brady Center's website, and the Brady Center is a big think tank for gun violence prevention. And they have a map of the United States, and you can click on any state, and it'll show you how rates of gun violence have decreased in that state as a result of gun violence prevention laws that have come into being in the last 10 years.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that gives you know. That, I use that as a tool for talking about gun violence with my family, because,
Can you say that again?
well, like for example, if you go to the Brady Center's website and you click on California, it'll show how the rates of gun violence in the state of California have dropped in the last 10 years. And it gives percentages. And we have the most gun violence prevention laws in the country. We have the strongest gun laws. And so they have reduced our rates of gun violence, but it's all per capita. So because we have such a high population, people think, well, there's more gun violence in California than anywhere else. But if you look at it from a per capita perspective, it's actually been reduced.
Right, and because I was just thinking too, it's like, well, what's worked? So something's got to be working, and so it's like we need, yeah, it'd be good to show, like,
Because in terms of what convinces me, and I don't know how the rest of you feel, we're talking about statistics. I don't like to see one figure, because usually one figure doesn't really convince me, because I know there's always more to the story. And so I feel like what you're saying is, maybe this is a good figure, but it would be more powerful if it were couched with something to give a little bit even more perspective, or
Right,
for people who
right.
have those, well, what about this, what about that? If you could maybe present it as a more complete picture.
Right, and like this has worked, and because of, it used to be this, but because of this, because it may be that other countries have not had to do the kind of work that we have, which is unfortunate that we've had to, but.
Well, unfortunately, in California, there are 5 cities that are still higher in gun violence than there are in other states.
Then
So-
that's, we should, yeah, that's.
And that's why, we focus on these numbers to give you a kind of a general perspective. But in fact, as it applies to, for example, a city like Salinas, it's the second highest rate of gun violence in the country. So
There are the top 50 states in the United States that have the highest rate of gun homicide. 5 of them are in California, and Salinas is one of them.
So
City gun violence is one of the-
That's really good to know, because then maybe we can kind of focus our efforts too.
Right, and there's a program that Moms Demand Action has, and it's kind of in the newer stage called the City Gun Violence Program. And based on my understanding of it, sounds like we need to lead in a team, but it's all about building community partnerships. So we're talking about Salinas. Building relationships with organizations that are already working in Salinas that do things that help to prevent gun violence. Understanding how we can levy our members to amplify their message and to help them in what they're already doing. Find ways that we might join with them to make it even more powerful. So that's one of the priorities for this next year.
Right, and also understand that It's the federal lack of action that is holding us back, Mr. Ball.
The Senate.
We'll talk about that in a minute.
I'd like to move on to the next
Yes.
fact. If that's okay. All right, so the next myth is that guns don't kill people, people kill people. Have you heard this one?
I just heard this from a police officer within the last 30 minutes because we were filing a report for some stolen bicycles out of our house. And I told him where I was going and that's literally what he said.
Interesting. Well, what this says is a response to that is people with guns kill people. People with guns kill people, and more efficiently than people without guns. So sure, if you don't have a gun, yes, you can kill a person. There are ways. But if you have a gun, it is much easier, especially an automatic weapon, which doesn't require very light weight, they're super portable, they're easy to fire, you get lots of shots.
And the high capacity magazines.
Right, yeah, right. People with guns kill people, and more efficiently than people without guns.
Right.
More efficiently.
Right.
And the US, here's another figure. The US gun homicide rate is 25 times higher than that of high-income countries. So our gun homicide rate, yeah, 25
That's a very
times,
compelling number.
yeah, higher than other developed countries.
Because it's true, if somebody comes, like I said, I lived in Britain for a long time, and, you know, a man went crazy on the street with a knife, and yes, he did hurt,
The
somebody,
machete.
killed one person, yes, that's right, and then damaged, but they were able to overwhelm it. They had, Dunblane was where they had the one school shooting, I believe in the 80s, and then immediately they passed total banning of guns in Britain. I know Britain's a lot smaller and has not as many guns as we ever, it was up in
I
Scotland.
mean, even the police
And
don't
they-
carry guns up there, I've heard.
No, I mean, it's gotten a little bit more now because of terrorist things, so when you're in London, that you see it more, but it was immediate, so once they had that gun, that happened where children were killed, the government stepped in and said no. And I don't believe we've had any major incidents as far as that happening in their schools, so it really shows, like you say, the federal working along with the local and stuff was, you know, becomes so frustrating.
There's a New York Times article. It says, what explains U.S. mass shootings, international comparison, suggest an answer. So this is a really good article that I book listed a long time ago.
Can you
And-
say the title of that? New York Times.
So it's the New York Times, what explains U.S. mass shootings, international comparison, suggest an answer. And it says the United States has 270 million guns and had 90 mass shootings from 1966 to 2012. So that's not a really recent statistic, but they've done a lot of research in this area. And that was a really helpful article that I share with my family.
I'll check that out, thank you. It's always tricky when you do comparisons with other nations, because when you do that, there's so many more factors that come into play, but it's still a good comparison.
You compare population.
Right.
Culture.
Culture, yeah.
Sure, right.
What is the gun ownership ratio? I mean, like, do we have,
One in how many?
or like say if Britain has, like how many more guns? Do we have like 500 times more guns as the next
We have
three
more
combined?
more
or-
guns than people. There's more guns than the US population in the United States.
And so like, oh, yeah, no, and I'm sure it's not evenly distributed, but I mean, like, well, what I mean is like, does Britain have half as many guns per capita as we do? Yeah, because that'd be a good, just to contextualize.
I wrote that down.
Yeah.
Well, we have such a gun industry here, and the manufacturing industry is overwhelming us with firearms.
No, the arms industry, that's, I think we have Israeli, Russian, and the US, probably South African. I don't know who else has munitions manufacturers.
Well, we have worse. We have the ability to make ghost guns, which is what's
Oh.
now.
Principal.
Oh, yeah. And, yeah.
That's a whole other ball.
That's a whole another, I mean, I got, anyway, yeah.
I don't think that was on my slide.
Well, no, I got completely out of whack about that a couple of years ago. Yeah, anyway.
For every 100 residents of the United States, there's 120.5
firearms.
Right, there's more.
So for every 100 residents, there's 120.5 firearms.
Every 100 US residents?
Yes, there's 120 firearms.
And what about other countries? What's
That's
the
what I'm
next
trying to
country?
compare.
125?
120.5. Right.
We, by far, we have more guns in this country proportionally.
Yeah, I'm just curious as to what is the,
Yeah.
yeah.
Right. So I have this is just a Wikipedia thing that actually compares all of the countries in the worldwide civilian firearms holdings as of 2017, and it looks at the amount of firearms that are in the country, their population, and then the estimates of firearms per 100 citizens, and I'll tell you which one's like the second to us. I'm just going down this. There's one that has 34 per resident, per 100. Gosh, that's probably going to be the closest one to us.
But that's
New
still
Zealand.
I was just going to say, I got to scroll over to the other side to tell you which country that is, but wait, there's one that's 39. Oh, Montenegro
Montenegro?
has 39 per 100 residents.
But that's far less.
Oh,
yes.
We are by far.
New
Yeah, I
Caledonia,
was curious as
well,
to what the.
New Caledonia has 42 per resident, per 100 residents. New Caledonia, I don't even know where that is.
Yeah, I know.
So if we know,
New Caledonia?
But by far.
by far, if we know people with guns kill people and very efficiently, then that underscores the importance of background check, right? So it's up to the person, and the gun is a very efficient tool, then those people that are able to buy and own firearms should be reliable people of good judgment and safety. And background checks, universal background checks is a major legislative issue that our organization is working on. Because currently, if you buy a gun from Walmart or a licensed dealer, like the Hunter Supply on Fremont Street, you have to undergo a background check, and that's really good. But if you buy one from a garage sale, you don't have to have a background check. If you buy one online, there's no background check. And in states like Nevada, which is next to us, their laws are much looser, and that's why we see many of the crimes committed in California are committed with firearms that were
Like the shooting in Delaware, I heard that back in
Yeah.
Nevada.
People he lived here, but he went to the bought the gun. He actually was smart enough to set up some type of PO box or something. He had to establish himself in some way. But of course, it's able to bring the guy straight in.
A lot of planning involved.
Yeah, they're not crazy.
No.
They're enough to figure it, I mean.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting, because
Yeah.
then he would probably pass a background check.
I don't think
But
he would.
he was too young.
And
Oh, he was too young?
He was too young for
Young, but
California.
smart.
Didn't he use an automatic?
And it was automatic, so California laws
Yeah.
were stopping him, but
Yeah.
it didn't stop him going across.
Because you have to be 21.
Yeah.
The next myth is that arming teachers will keep our kids safer at school. If only we had teachers who were armed and trained to keep our children safer, children would be safer. But in fact, arming teachers introduce new risks to children and teachers. And school safety experts, law enforcement, teachers, and parents oppose arming teachers. So, again, getting back to the New York City policemen and women who are very highly trained and themselves agree that they're not 100% accurate in times of crisis. How can we expect our teachers who are trained to teach and nurture our children to suddenly become superheroes and do it with 100% accuracy and not injure somebody in the process? It's just not reasonable. And if you ask law enforcement, they will tell you that arming civilians greatly complicates their response to an active shooter situation. Former Dallas Police Chief David Brown was quoted as saying, "We don't know who the good guy is versus the bad guy when everyone starts shooting." So luckily, teachers cannot be armed in California, to my knowledge. Is that correct? Okay. But in many other states, I know that they can.
Is there a law saying that? Okay. That they are not allowed to bring a firearm onto campus? Okay.
And the only exception to that is an area where if you're a
police officer who's also a teacher.
Oh, okay, then you would be able to.
There may be under certain circumstances, but
And wasn't there
In
a
Seaside.
incident?
Yeah.
Seaside.
He missed, but.
Yeah.
Nobody
Yeah.
was serious.
yeah, and I mean, I think that that's just the example, right? Like a firearm is a dangerous thing to have in a classroom full of children. And even with someone who's trained, even with someone with the best intentions, who really was looking to educate
Right.
students in,
Accident.
And wasn't the purpose of him pulling the firearm out, wasn't the purpose for him to demonstrate to the students how to safely handle the
Right,
firearm?
yeah.
I think that's what I read, but
it was a public safety class.
safety
So, and he was a police officer, so, you know,
Yeah.
even in the best case scenario.
Right.
Right.
and
Challenging.
thankfully no one was seriously injured.
But there were students who were injured.
Yeah.
Like.
Were they
pieces-
seriously
Pieces in their, they've got pieces in their eye or something, wasn't it, like shrapnel work from the ceiling or something?
And they're traumatized.
Oh, yeah. So it was just the fact of introducing the weapon into the environment that made the risk go up.
I can't imagine it was too today.
Yeah.
Thankfully, there was no social media and iPhones and things like that because it would have negatively affected me as a child and a teen. But I cannot imagine. School was a safe place, even though I didn't, always necessarily fit in. It was a safe place, you
Right.
know? You go and you learn and
I mean,
you
there
make
were
yourself
adults
kind of
there, but-
vulnerable, for better or for worse. But I can't imagine how I would have felt if I knew that there were guns, if my teacher was armed. What kind of mindset does that give to you when you're going to learn?
I do think it's disgusting.
Aren't I supposed to be working on geometry? Why do you need a gun to protect me while I'm on geometry? This is the United States.
I needed a gun to protect me from geometry.
Well, the kids are so, I mean, at least my little one, she's so volatile at the best of times. I mean, adorable, center of my life, but, moody.
Yeah.
And I mean, they can't help it. They're going through all this stuff and you put all this, it's very, very stressful for the kids. It's an underlying level of stress. It just,
It's a hard conversation with my grandchildren when they say they have to have these drills.
Yeah.
These
Yeah.
lockdown drills. And I remember having earthquake drills.
Yes.
And it's almost like I avoid it. I don't want to talk about it to them because I'm almost so ashamed that they have to do that. And how do you tell them that's okay? I mean, how do you reassure them that, okay, well, yeah, I know you had a lockdown drill today, that's nice, you know?
Yeah.
How did that go? I mean, I just don't even know how to approach it for them because I just think it's so sad.
Well, when it's a real life scenario, it's
Right.
terrifying.
Oh.
When the last year I taught, I was teaching kindergarten, and some of you have heard the story. There were 2 kids with rifles that were spotted on the playground. They were they weren't on the playground, but they were on the other side of the landscaping from the playground. And there was no fence around the school. And so the principal had to clear the entire playground, and he put as many kids in the cafeteria as he could, and then I pulled 90 kids into my classroom for 3 hours. And those kids were terrified. They were terrified. Yeah, I was worried too. I was writing, I was asking how many of you are, I was writing down teachers' names and taking counts of students from each teacher and writing them on the classroom board. So, but it was, and parents could not get in.
That would be terrifying to be a parent of being.
Yeah.
For 3 hours.
Yeah. I talk to my kids when they do have the lockdown, so we were notified by the school literally like an hour before it was going to happen, that it was going to happen. And, my kids are teenagers, so they have phones, and so I texted them saying, I know this is going to be happening today, I know this may be scary and overwhelming, but just be calm and cooperate with your teacher's directions and try to, keep everybody else around you calm. And it's, I kind of tried to frame it in the way that this is good that you guys are practicing for a scenario, as scary as it is, because God forbid, if this ever happens, you guys will kind of know you've done this before. You've got to get into the classroom, my son, 14, is telling me, oh yeah, they were talking amongst themselves about what they would use as weapons. And so they were saying, there's these metal, like paperweight things on the teacher's desk and fire extinguishers. But it was pretty scary. I mean, just to have to do that. My 16-year-old daughter said she was in the very, very back of the room, kind of a lab area, and that everybody was really scared, even though they knew it was a drill. And then they said what the scariest part was, before the drill was over, is administration has to go door to door and they have to shake the doors to see if they're locked. So they knew this was a drill, but here they are all cowered and, you know, trying to be quiet. They hear this door shake and they are all so startled, like, you know, we know that's not really somebody that's trying to get in. But yeah, I mean, I think it's, for myself, I think it's good to talk to them because it helps them process it. And just to be able to say, you know, you can tell me how you feel, I can understand how that can be scary.
Yeah.
But it is, you know, the likelihood of it happening is very, very small, but if it does, at least you've practiced and you know what to do. And
You keep thinking it's small, right?
Right.
My
I know.
daughter was in a lockdown at Baylor last month in her English class in the dark
right.
for an hour because there was a shooting at an apartment building right off campus.
Yeah.
And it happens a lot. This has touched my life so many times, not just as a teacher, but as a parent.
Well, it's interesting that you say that. I mean, mass shootings are only like 1 to 2%
Right.
of all the shootings. They get a lot of attention and they should.
Lockdowns are more frequent than the
Lockdowns
actual
are much
shooting.
more frequent. What's worse is the daily shootings that we can give you statistics on that are actually scarier. But we don't have a lot of time, so Karen, why don't you carry on?
I just want to check in since we have a few people in the house. We have some, would you mind introducing yourself?
Sure. My name's Wes White. I did a YouTube channel, anything up on positive, civic, social, environmental justice oriented. I'm also running for city council in Salinas, so I just want to see more inclusion, more progress, more lives saved. And this is certainly an important topic.
We decided he's a really good guy, but if anybody doesn't want to photograph, say so. Okay.
Thank you. Okay, this is great discussion. Next one, everyone already has to get a background check when buying a gun. But the fact is that federal law only requires licensed dealers to perform background checks. And that means thousands of guns each year are exchanged without one, often online or at gun shows. So you can legally in 31 states walk into a gun show or online or a garage sale, purchase a firearm without having a background check. And we have stories of cases where the background check prevented somebody from getting a firearm, and that was a really good decision. And in some cases, they're going to be extremely motivated to obtain it, and they'll find a way, but it's going to prevent many people who should not have a weapon.
One more factoid. Last year, 154,000 federal gun checks that should have been done, background checks, were not done. And so we also have a lapse in the federal government in doing required background checks.
What was the reason for those not being done?
It is different in every state. You know, they were
computers were
overwhelmed, the
down.
computers were down, any number of reasons, but they weren't executed. So we have a faulty background check system, even when we have it in place.
Wasn't there an incident where the one, I don't know if it was the mass shooting or not, but he had applied for the background check, but it wasn't back in like 3 days?
Exactly.
So they had to release it.
Yes, and that's
Which
the other
is
thing that's,
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
ridiculous.
there is a bill in Congress and
Yeah.
lying dead in the Senate that's trying to reverse
Yeah,
that.
at least say, I don't care if it takes, how long does it take you to get your passport? You know, it takes you 6 weeks.
Or a driver's
something.
license.
Driver's license, like it just takes what it takes.
Right.
That brings up my point. I've been bugging, I don't know how many politicians, literally for years about this. We should treat guns like cars.
Yes.
They should be licensed, registered, and insured, and owners and users should pass tests to show they know how to use the storage facility.
Absolutely.
And nobody has responded. Not a single
Well,
politician has
the
responded.
NRA will raise 25 objections to one over that, and they're powerful.
But
It's
like
one
what?
reason
Like
why.
what objection would you raise to that?
What would the NRA?
I mean, let's play act here. What
Yeah,
could you
let's-
possibly, how could you object to that?
People
The Second Amendment, there's something amendment right here.
There's
and
too
right.
many at once, what?
You're going to put me on a list What are you gonna do with that list? Is that the list you're gonna use?
But you go on the
when
list when you
come
drive a
statement?
car. When you choose to drive a car, yes, you are on the list. So what's the big deal?
They say that the Constitution guarantees their right to,
But it doesn't say anything about whether or not it should be regulated on a list, et cetera.
Right, it actually says a well-regulated militia.
Right,
So,
with that comes responsibility,
Yes,
right?
right.
They've thrown out the responsibility part.
Right.
There's no rational purpose for this,
Yeah.
but it's what it is, and this is what we're dealing with in our environment.
The only, yeah, no, I completely agree. I think the only way to kind of fight back is kind of what we're doing, is if we bulk up. It's like if we're, if the NRA is, I don't know what, 5 million, and we're 20 million.
right.
Because I gotta believe there's at least, that the majority of people are like us. But it's, but people are busy, it's hard to come to, I mean, it's just crazy.
No,
Yeah,
you
it's hard,
really-
yeah.
The lobby has the Congress general.
It's true, but it's a long-term effort, I'm not saying that. It's a long-term effort,
That's why
but
we're
you
here.
got, yeah.
I think it comes from education, because if we have 20 million members, it's knowing these facts. So it's having these facts and the statistics, because again, the conversation I had 30 minutes ago with a police officer, he said he would like everybody armed. He said it would be so much easier if Granny had a handgun and nobody would mug her. And I said, but then, what if Granny shoots somebody else? I don't understand that.
Maybe
Yeah.
it's her loaded pistol in her handbag,
But
which is.
he did
on the
say he would
floor.
want everybody to then also have training also. And I said, well, just the introduction of the weapons increases our risk of death. That's
Because of human error.
right.
That's kind of, my husband did 32 years at San Jose PD, and we have guns in the home locked and everything, but he is just the opposite
Really?
of what that policeman said. He's absolutely no civilian should have, especially an AK-47 or
Right.
anything like that. And if you do have a gun, like he has to go every year, or he does,
Right.
because he's responsible and he's retraining, over at San Jose PD to have a registered, so, it's just, to hear somebody say that, I think because police are in a really hard situation
Right.
in this day and age where you don't know who you're, I can't really imagine going up at night to a car,
Not knowing.
and he just said, you just assume everybody has a gun.
Right.
So, for him, now retired, he would much rather, the less people have guns.
And
The
for
better.
a police officer or a firefighter or an EMT or a military or a veteran, for those people to become part of our movement, their voices are, not that ours are not powerful, because they are, but not everybody will listen to a given person. I mean, you might listen to me, but your friends might not listen to me.
Right.
And so that's why we want to grow our movement and pull in as many people as we can. And that's why I read the diversity, inclusion, and equity statement at the beginning, is because we want gun owners, we want conservatives, we want men, we want these people, because their voices carry different weight, not more weight, different.
I invited him to the meeting.
Yeah. Good for you! That's great.
I told him, I said, we should have a variety of voices, it's
Yeah.
nonpartisan. I'd love to hear some of his feelings about, that situation.
Well, we want the police
Because
officers and the
there's a different
firefighters to be on board with us.
Right.
And they are.
And that's what I told him about our
I think
advisory
they
board.
are ultimately, yeah.
Yeah.
But we had a conversation with a firefighter on Saturday at the wharf, and I threw out the question, who needs an assault weapon? Because
Right.
I honestly don't think I don't think civilians need assault weapons, or high-capacity magazines. And he said, well, I need an assault weapon.
And he's your friend, right?
Yeah, and we asked him why he needed a high-capacity magazine. He said, well, if I want to go wild boar hunting, I need 30 rounds.
Well, and
Well, we
then
asked
definitely in
him
the
how
streets
many,
here.
Yeah.
we asked him, I said, well,
You asked that
how
question.
many bullets would you need to hunt a wild boar? I mean, so it depends on how good of a shot you are, I suppose. But, if you don't need any more than 30, why do you need something that holds more than that?
Well, he asked the question, what's a high-capacity magazine? And
I don't know the answer.
I mean,
Right.
I looked it up, and it says more than 10 rounds.
Okay.
But he was talking about 30.
Right.
It's
Why
difficult
can't
to
you
reload.
reload? I think why would
Right.
you reload?
Right, yeah.
You have time to.
I'm
One
gonna shift
little
us,
scare away.
okay, I'm gonna shift us to the next slide, if that's okay. Myth, federal law prohibits all domestic abusers from having guns. Fact, federal law generally does not cover abusive dating partners or convicted stalkers.
Or even hasn't been convicted.
Right. And if the person has been convicted, the law does not require them to turn in the guns that they already own. So, the truth is that there are still this is a big one, huge loopholes in our gun laws. And on average, 50 American women are shot and killed every month at the hands of their current or former intimate partner. Well, that is crazy. 50 a month. 50 a month are killed.
So, we noticed that the Violence Against Women Act is another one that's languishing in Mitch McConnell's inbox. And yesterday there was an amazing incident in Houston in which a police officer was killed in an altercation between an abused woman and her boyfriend. And he came out on camera in an amazing statement, actually had a friend of one of our people sent it to us.
I just posted it on the Facebook account today.
Yes, and amazing, I have it actually on my phone, but this is the police chief of Houston who came out and said, all of you politicians sitting there smugly supporting us and telling us how sorry you are, you, Ted Cruz, you, John Cornyn. He went and named names, and he said, you are doing nothing about this. You've got the Violence Against Women Act that's been sitting there that you have not done anything with, and one of my police officers is dead as a result. You should all be ashamed. He was amazing, and I sent him I called the Houston police chief number and said how proud that we were of him doing this, and they seemed to be very pleased about that. John Cornyn, I cannot believe, sent out a tweet and said, well, if we weren't so involved in impeachment madness, we'd be able to do something about it. And I also called him. And I think these are important.
Yes.
People listen to this.
Yes.
So I think having somebody, I wish had been covered on the news. He was fantastic, and Corey came up with the idea of writing a postcard thanks to this person. But the fact that he named names in his own state, the people who are not doing anything,
Maybe in a little bit, somebody can pull up the exact quote, because it's.
I can pull it up.
And at the end of the meeting, I would like to allow a little bit of time to wrap up. I have on the agenda a couple of suggested actions that we could take, and one of them is to write a postcard. It's just happened. It was just phenomenal what he said. So if you feel like that's something you can do, I bought some postcards, and we can figure out the address and we can write. The organization isn't covering the cost for postcards and postage, so I bought the postcards, 35 cents.
We can mail them
We can mail ourselves, yes.
And it's not 35 cents, like, oh, wow.
Actually,
We could probably put a 49
Yeah.
cent stamp on it.
Yeah, it's a very easy thing, so it's an action, and I have materials.
If you like to hear it, it's worth hearing.
And do something about it or retire.
It goes on. This is the police chief talking. The murder suspect had a history of mental illness and domestic violence. And the police chief said tougher gun laws could have prevented the shooting.
Law enforcement.
I got cut off because I don't have reception. Let's just see if I can get it back. Sorry. No, I don't have.
Because I don't want to hear about how much you support law enforcement. I just had to bury, I'm going to have to bury a sergeant.
American blood is being shed every day in this community. Here at one time, how much they care about lives, the sanctity of lives, yet we all know law enforcement is one of the biggest reasons that the Senate, Mitch McConnell, and John Cornyn, and Ted Cruz, and others are not getting into a room and having a conference committee with the House in getting the Violence Against Women's Act is because the NRA doesn't like the fact that we want to take firearms out of the hands of boyfriends that abuse their girlfriends. And who killed our sergeant? A boyfriend abusing his girlfriend. The fact that his mom, his father, his wife, his sisters, his friends, and ultimately the community that he laid his life for will be putting him to rest before Christmas because of the cowardice of the political people that we have in office. You're not a Republican, you're not a Democrat, you're not a conservative, you're not a liberal, you're not a progressive, you are an American, and American blood is being shed every day in this community, throughout this nation. And do something about it or retire.
That was yesterday?
Yeah.
I would hope that was on a lot of news broadcasts.
I didn't see it.
I didn't see it.
I didn't
saw
see
it
it.
once.
Maybe
My
we
husband
need
watched it.
to
He said
contact the
different.
news and
love
have
it.
say
Yeah.
why wasn't
Well,
there.
I
was there,
I
but
did.
they didn't
I
show
got
it
in
on
touch with PBS because they should have covered it.
Yeah.
And I doubt I'll get an answer.
Was it a major network?
Well,
There wasn't anything on like MSNBC or CNN or anything. I was
that's
watching
huge
all that
news
tonight
that the
on
Houston
CNN.
police chief
Yeah.
said that.
Yeah, maybe we can have it on our Facebook page.
Well, that's
I
what
posted it
Yeah.
today. Yeah, I
Yeah.
posted it today, yeah.
But are there other ways that, I mean, yeah, no, it's, right now is a little difficult to break into the news.
Right, that's all the news last night.
There's nothing to say, you know.
However, it gives all of us hope.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's what we pick up on.
Especially going from a place like Texas.
Exactly.
Yes.
That's good.
And in such a large city as Houston.
Yeah.
Yeah, so domestic violence is a huge issue for gun violence prevention, and there's a lot of work to be done. October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and one of the things that I would really like to do over the next couple of months is have somebody identify themselves as, I want to be the lead of this, and we can start to build relationships with organizations that are already working to help victims of domestic violence. Wendy, you had suggested the YMCA or WMCA? Okay, yeah, and I'm sure there are others that I don't know about, but I think we should be building relationships with them, and we can do things that help them meet their mission. There are a lot of ways, there are a lot of faces of gun violence. Okay. Myth: if you don't own guns, you don't need to worry about your kids getting a hold of one. What do you think?
Well, that's ridiculous.
It is ridiculous because
I mean, they get them in other people's homes all
if
the
you don't
time.
own guns,
Oh,
you don't need to worry about your kids getting a hold of one. But the fact is that nearly 4.6 million children live in a household with at least one loaded and unlocked gun. And children and teens access guns in cars and homes other than their home. So if it is your home and you have firearms, it's pretty obvious why you would store them securely, and that's what the Be Smart program is all about. But for parents who have kids and they don't have a firearm in the home, we have to communicate to them the importance of them asking when their kids go to other homes or their grandkids, because there are 4.6 million kids that live in homes, maybe not like your home, but where there is a firearm that's stored, unlocked and loaded. And we also know that if you're looking at school shootings, especially high school shootings, in almost 80% of the cases where there's a school shooting, the shooter obtained the weapon either in their home or a neighbor's home or a relative's home or a car. So if these weapons are not accessible, if they are locked away and unloaded and the ammunition is stored separately, which is the whole message of Be Smart, then we can greatly reduce unintentional shootings, we can greatly reduce teen suicide, and we can have a significant impact on school shootings.
Well, I think that having a conversation with people, outside of your home that may have weapon, especially around the holidays, is really important because, kids are going to grandparents and aunts and uncles and cousins. I know every one of my family members have weapons. They're either hunters or police officers, and so I know, and I've had that conversation with the family members. you know, kids are like shushed off to the room to go play, go do this, and, you know, you need to know what the weapons are. So it's important for the adults at least to have that conversation, and as your kids get older, to talk with the kids, but you know, when they're little, that's not necessarily fair to put any responsibility on the children, and that's why I think Be Smart is so important, because it puts it on the adults.
I've never heard of Be Smart. How do we get hold of it?
Be Smart is a public education campaign. It's part of, there's a lot of things that moms demand action.
Is there a website for it?
Yes.
Yeah, Be Smart for Kids.
BeSmartForKids.org.
And on that website, there's some really great videos, including explains the program. There's also a public service announcement that it's called Kids Find Everything.
Yep.
And it shows the 3-year-old going around the house. The father's in the basement, and the 3-year-old is there, and the father says, can't find a screw for this, and the 3-year-old goes away and produces it.
Yeah.
Kids can find anything, and at 3 years old, they're old enough to be able to shoot a gun.
There's good kind of stuff in my house.
Exactly.
Where's this kid?
They'll find it.
I just want to acknowledge how hard that conversation was to have. And just personally, my little boy is 7, and you know, there's a lot of friends' houses we sent him to. My mom's house, my sister's house. I know that my mom's house had Acknowledgment. I know that my sister's house had been, like, for me to find the words to say, hey, sister, I know you have guns. You keep them locked up, right?
Yeah.
Just even asking that question was really hard. It was hard in a way that it shouldn't have been hard. And I had to practice it. I had to practice saying it out loud in the car. I had to practice saying it in the mirror before I could say those words to my sister, who I love and trust implicitly.
Right.
And then to say that to a friend's house who we were going to, I mean, that's, like, I think it sounds like, I'm like, of course. And then I'm like, ooh.
Oh, no,
Oh, gosh.
I'm being totally honest. I have a 3-year-old son, and I'm terrified of this. And I'm going to be completely honest, I have avoided inviting my friends to my home with kids to have play dates, because we have a handgun, it is locked, it is a cable lock, the ammunition is stored separately, and it's in a safe. It is totally safe. But I'm really uncomfortable, because it's my husband's, and he's not even a gun guy. It's just something he bought a long time ago, and it's, you know, he would get rid of it if he really needed to, but there's not a good reason. And it's a private thing for him, and he's not really comfortable. I mean, he's come to terms with it because, like, this is important and I'm doing this, but he is not a fan of, he thinks it's a private matter and that he shouldn't have to tell people, but I believe otherwise. And so, I mean, I am uncomfortable, and we had some friends come stay with us recently, and I have to tell her. I have to tell my friend Ashley, you know, at the end of 3 days that, but it's over here and it's safe. And I mean, I was like dreading having to tell her, and she was even there.
How did she react though?
Oh,
Because
she was like, it was no big deal. Because we started talking about the issue of gun, I don't remember what the entrance point was, but I kept waiting for a chance to talk about it, because I don't want to talk about it right in front of my child, because he picks up on everything.
Yeah.
And so it needed to be private, and it needed to be more than just like 3 minutes, you know, and it's like I wanted to share what I was doing, but I didn't want to come on too strong, right? You know what I mean? Like, so
There's one of the aims of the Be
she
Smart
was fine.
program to-
She was like, it was like no big deal whatsoever, and, but we have some friends, like, anyway, I'm with you. And I almost think that
normalizing these
in a future
conversations.
meeting, it would be good to maybe do some role playing.
Yeah,
Like
that would
maybe
be
we could
helpful.
do like a 5-minute, you know, breakout in paragraph
Yeah.
3s, and we could just practice having those really uncomfortable
When, when my child was younger, I didn't, to the parents, I would put it on my child, because my son, when he was 3 and 5 and 7, he would find anything, he would climb anything, he was curious, and so I would say, Liam will get into anything, Liam will find anything, he will, you know, and so I put it on that if there's anything to find, or if there's anything dangerous, you know, I just
You'll
let
find
you know.
it.
But, you know, I mean,
That's a good way, because you're not mentioning guns specifically.
you're not saying, you're not saying it to them, that you're accusing them of maybe not storing it safely or making it a danger, that you're like, my child is gonna.
Yeah, no, I think that's really good, but I think too, like I remember, I mean, it's just, the things have changed in this society. I mean, people, I remember, people used to drive drunk or, didn't put on their seatbelts or throw litter out the car, and we don't do that anymore.
Right.
Or use plastic, single-use plastic bag.
Things change.
Straws. So I think that's, something a group like this can do is like, but you need a simple message, and then.
That's one of the roles, the aims of the Be Smart program is to normalize that
Yeah.
question, and what we liken it to is pool safety. If your child's going to a place with a pool, don't you ask if there's a fence around the pool?
Or even dogs, like,
Right.
like if we were having a child over that, I had never been to our house before, it's like, oh, we have a Boston Terrier, is your child scared of dogs? Should I make sure he's put away,
Or food allergies.
Food
I mean, I
allergies.
ask that question, there's all these questions that I ask, and I have to like just find that place where I'm like, okay, I ask every kid who comes over,
Right.
is there any food allergies?
Right.
Anything, what's your emergency phone number in case something happens?
Yeah.
Like, there's just a list of things, and I just, and it's gotten easier,
Yeah.
I will say, like, I've been doing it,
Yeah.
and it's gotten easier. And my kid's not gonna get anything. Like, that's not my kid, right?
Oh,
My
really?
kid's, he's never, like, we never had to baby-proof the house, he just wasn't that kid.
Wow.
Right, but I still have to be responsible for him.
Right.
And that's on me as his mom.
I'm gonna move to the next
Yeah,
one,
anyway.
which is a good transition. Myth, a small child cannot pull a trigger. The fact is that every year nearly 350 American children die nearly 350 American children under the age of 18 gain access to a gun and unintentionally shoot themselves or someone else. Dr. Gracie Wilcox, who is one of the pediatrician, and she's a member of the Be Smart Advisory Council, and she noted at the forum that even a 3-year-old usually has the muscular strength to pull a trigger. So it's just not true. They can't.
Well, and guns can go off too.
And kids drop things.
And if you think about, there's
Right.
the
It doesn't
strongest,
always take the.
the strongest
hold.
digit is the thumb, right? So if you think about where is the barrel of the gun pointed if your thumb is on the trigger? It's pointed at your face.
Yeah. Right.
So their thumb is strong enough, and in order to use their thumb, the firearm has to be pointed.
Well, this is another tragic story, and this is from the Trace, a newsletter that some of us follow. There was a home in which the mother used to use water pistol guns to give her kid water. Would literally just shoot the water into the kid's mouth using it. So one day, the mother, who was a drug addict, had a loaded gun that she used to protect herself against the dealers. The kid picked up the gun thinking it was a water gun and shot himself.
That's horrible.
3 years old.
That's horrible.
So, and by the way, she got 24 years.
That's interesting, because most of the time,
Most of them, nobody's prosecuted.
people aren't even charged.
That's right.
Well, good that she was.
Well, partly it's because she was a meth addict, and so it was a double heaping. But, a water gun that a kid might use as a
They don't
joke.
see the difference.
They don't see the difference.
Right.
So,
Myth, strong gun laws don't work. Look at Chicago. But the fact is that Chicago proves why we must push for strong federal gun laws, because many of the guns used in crime in Chicago can be traced back to nearby states with weaker gun laws, right? And we see the same thing here in California, where the majority of crimes that are committed with a firearm, in California, the weapon was obtained in Nevada, which has weaker gun laws.
Or Arizona.
Yeah, Arizona.
which is what makes federal legislation so important.
There's one more I'd like to just wrap up, and that will leave us a little bit of time to talk about some upcoming events and some actions. So the final myth is that if someone is suicidal, they will find a way to take their life. But the fact is that most people who attempt suicide do not die unless they use a gun. So out of there are approximately 85% of gun suicide attempts that end in death. So if a person wants to take their own life and they use a gun, and almost 85% of the times they're going to be successful. However, if you look at suicide attempts where they're not using a gun, they're successful only about 5% of the time. I was really surprised.
Wow.
I would
That's a
think it
really
would be,
85 to 5.
yes.
Yeah.
So if they choose to use a gun, it's gonna be successful almost 85% of the time. But across all suicide attempts, not involving a firearm, less than 5% will result in death.
So let's not relate that to the teen suicide rate,
Yeah.
which has grown over 85% over the last 10 years. These teenagers, there are something like 800 of them a year. 85% of them use a gun that they found in their homes, and they die. That's a major public health crisis.
It's such a vulnerable time in their lives where they're going through so much and they just increase their chances of dying and not making it through the teenage years because they have access to a firearm.
Precisely. If they didn't, the rate would be far less.
And they'd be able to come out of the teenage years and look back and hopefully get the help that they needed.
See, I have my son who has two small daughters, he says, well, maybe we should make guns fruit flavored, like with the vaping, because then they might do ban something.
Then they would ban
So immediately, how many teenagers, which is tragic, any teenager, but compare that to what you're saying with guns.
Oh, and they're acting
suicide,
on,
and yet it continues to be defended in government, that why we can't take these guns away, but yet, okay, the jewels or whatever, it is, the smoking is over, you know.
We have less than-
10 children,
yeah,
you know,
our
it's
children are
tragic, but, you know, so my son's like, we should make guns fruit flavored, then they'll get banned faster.
Right, because then they're targeted.
Yeah, I don't get the
children.
inconsistency, I just don't know how we get through to people, because, I mean, these topics come up, and for some reason I seem to have a lot of very supportive friends all of a sudden, and, you know, very bright. I mean, it's almost getting to where you can't talk about anything at any dinner table right now, especially politically, and because everybody's just kind of gone boom to their corners, and really, you know, I just don't know how you get through. I don't understand the inconsistency of one thing is bad. You know, if a plane crashes, the FAA brought in all these safety rules. Like I said, with cars, we used to not be belted in, and yet they realized that cars killed people, so in the 50s and 60s. So we don't get rid of the car, but we made it safer.
Right.
We made the dashboard softer, we now belt up, you know, we made things safer, you know, okay, smoking's not good, yet we, you know, try to, you know, I just don't get it. Yeah,
Well, the difference between that and a plane crash is that when a plane crashes, 355 people die at once.
At once, right.
And that makes it, you know,
Right.
people get really upset about that.
And we have
With this, I mean,
yeah.
we've got one person a day at least being killed by a gun, every single day.
And it was
Throughout
Mothers
the
Against
country.
Drunk Driving that turned that whole
Yes.
situation
Yeah.
around. So I think Monster Man
It
Action,
was modeled after
Million
that.
Mile March, you know, can really make a difference.
And I
Yeah.
think the younger kids getting
Yeah,
into,
definitely.
like your Douglas, the Florida school shooting,
Yeah,
those
Parkland.
18-year-olds, 20 years
Yeah.
now, Parkland, when they get into, hopefully, the Senate and everything,
Yeah.
then,
Yes,
you
and
know,
like a
it's
generational
gonna
change.
really make a difference.
I just want to throw in, I think that made a huge difference, and we need to always maybe capitalize on that and keep it in mind, and I know that's what did it for me. When I heard those kids say, don't give us your prayers and your thoughts, change the laws, and I said, yeah, and I bought their book, and I read what they're saying, and I passed it around. And to me, I'm having the same reaction with that police chief in Houston. Those are important points where people change their mind.
Yeah.
Well, what's really exciting is Dick's Sporting Goods, when they found out that the
Yeah.
gun was bought at Dick's,
Yeah.
they decided to destroy millions of dollars worth of assault weapons.
Yeah.
Think of the lives that's gonna save.
Well, that's another thing actually, to that point I wanted to bring up, because someone sent me an article from the Wall Street Journal yesterday that essentially said that the sale of guns is now going up again. It had stopped for a while, and now it's going up. But the difference is that there are gun manufacturers who are taking more responsibility on what kinds of guns they sell and to whom. And so the notion of corporations having some ethical guidelines now, which seems to be taking off in a number of areas, seems to be affecting the gun industry with some manufacturers.
And dealers.
And dealers too.
Yeah.
So one of our target audiences is obviously to encourage those people to, for example, if they buy a gun at a local store here, a gun store, is for every one of them, they have to purchase a gun lock very few of them use it, but they have to, but to hand out a Be Smart card with every gun sale purchase so people can see what the point is of having this law. So let's just say that we know that we are making a difference in many ways. It's just that our national government is ignoring that issue.
But we can focus on our own community.
Right.
But what is so great is you have to talk about it. And we are so, because of our politics, we are becoming so polarized that it's easier just to avoid that altogether, because so we can just all stay friends.
Yeah.
But how you can't get through to a person unless by talking to them. So I'm hopeful that this is a wonderful discussion. I'm hopeful that it will help all of us feel more comfortable in having those conversations with our friends and our families in ways that are appropriate, and maybe convincing somebody that helping them re-examine their beliefs.
It's a very interesting thing, because I think that this whole polarization thing, there's probably like, I suspect there's maybe like 3 things that are really pivotal to some people who are probably not people sitting around this room. I think guns, probably right to life, and maybe prayer. And those are very, very tricky issues to talk about with somebody that you don't agree with. I mean, those are kind of the tribal 3, maybe. There may be others. And so I think it might be easier to start with people who are maybe not so far, over on that side, maybe a little closer to, because there are quite a few people who are in the middle, who are rational, you know what I mean?
Or find things that we have in common.
Well, that's
Because
right.
I think even people on the extremes can find that they have things in common.
Yes.
Everybody wants to save lives.
Well, that's what I
Yeah.
usually bring up
Suicide.
with a lot of my very, very conservative family is, when it comes down to it, we all have the same goal. We want our families to be safe and happy and healthy. It's the way we go about it that we differ. They want to protect their families with guns, I want to protect my family from guns. But in the end, we all want our families and our friends to be safe and happy and healthy. Those are the 3 things that we all have in common, and that's what we want for our friends and family. So I always, either at the beginning or at the end of any conversation, say, listen, this is always going to be something we have in common.
I want to just kind of wrap up this. We have about 12 minutes left. By reiterating that Moms Demand Action is a non-political organization, and we don't make judgment on gun ownership, whether it's right or wrong, and we advocate for common sense changes. So the organization is all about finding common ground and doing things that just make sense, that are common sense in a nonpartisan way.
That's a good point.
I'd like to jump to, I'm going to actually skip to actions that you can take. You have to go.
Yeah, I've got a phone call at 1
So on the agenda, some actions that you can take. We have a lot of teams, so we've got many, many, many positions. If there's something that you've been thinking about that you might be interested in, please grab me after the meeting. I've also listed my contact information at the bottom if this is a good time. You can call me or email me or text me. If you are interested in something, or if you know somebody that might be, or you want to pass along my contact information, that would be great. But we have a lot of teams that we're looking to staff, so I have two-way texting. If you do get the perfect team for you, it's called a puzzle team, and it's really fun. I did it actually one time, it's easy. That would be a big help. If you'd like to plan events or know about somebody that does, we have an events team that we need to staff. If you like connecting with other people, then we have a membership recruitment team that needs to be staffed. And if you really like partnerships with community organizations, we have a fantastic community outreach lead, Ann Packer, who's not able to be here today, but she needs a team of people to help her. So that would be an opportunity for action. If you're the kind of person that loves data and data systems, we have lots of cool stuff to do. We have a whole data team. We do have 1, possibly 2 data leads, but there's lots of data that can be done. Data is something that can be done from your home at odd times. It's also really good for somebody who's an introvert and doesn't like being around crowds or doesn't really enjoy the one-on-one or one-to-many communication. And then for all of the programs that we have teams and leads as well. So if you look at the agenda up under the entry, the work we do, there's a bullet point, talks about advocacy. There's two things we do in terms of advocacy. One is legislative, and Emily is our legislative lead, but she might need some helpers.
Definitely.
Legislation is going to be one of our top priorities for this next coming year. So that's one of the advocacy areas. Electoral is also going to be a top priority for this next year. In fact, I called into the elections meeting last night. It was very, very good. And I'll talk more about that at another time, but there's this whole gun sense candidate questionnaire that our parent organization, Every Time for Gun Safety, will be issuing soon. Candidates that are running for state or federal office are eligible to apply, and so that means assembly members and state senators, but not local, not for local people. They are eligible to apply, and if they pass, then they get the gun sense candidate distinction, and that means that if any of our members want to help with their campaign, and then we get to plug into that.
They are.
Right, so that's going to be coming in the spring, and we can talk more about that. If anybody wants more information on the elections activities, I'm happy to give you more information. There's an electoral team. We also have local campaigns. I mentioned already the city gun violence program. So we're looking for a leader for that as well as a public health, and that's going to be focused on Salinas. Our other big local campaign, which we are already really doing well with, is organizing for school safety. And this is a multi-tiered program. The very most basic level is getting local school boards, public schools, to issue a memorandum to all parents talking about the importance of safe gun storage. Again, it's basically the BSMART message that the school district has to send out to parents, and in some cases maybe get an acknowledgement back. And the California State Superintendent, just as of a couple of weeks ago, issued this as a requirement to do it, which is fantastic.
Is it a requirement or was a
Is it a
suggestion? I think it was a
suggestion?
suggestion.
Okay, can you speak to
I wish it was a requirement.
Right, it's a
That
suggestion.
would've been
Thank you for
awesome.
clarifying.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about this at all? Amy?
No, I mean, I think that's basically what it is, and I know, so Carolyn is out doing the rounds to
One of our
speak to
volunteers,
school boards about asking them to adopt a BSMART resolution. So I think there's a number of things, right? So it's the resolution that a board can adopt, it's sending a memo out to your parents or communication out to your parents and all of your families, encouraging them to store their firearms safely. And then there's so many more things beyond that, right? There's district policy that could be amended to include ongoing communication with parents or education in the classrooms. And so Pacific Grove is agendized to consider the BSMART resolution. Is that tomorrow night? Okay, it'd be great to have people there with their red shirts on.
What time is it?
7 o'clock. Did Carolyn, she wants us to come and
They
show
would
up?
be
Okay.
great.
Yes, she does.
Okay.
And then she and
I know for a fact she's already got people coming.
Okay.
And I think she would welcome others who she knows supports. What she doesn't want is a bunch of people to show up that are going to be counter to what she's advocating. So
Right.
if any of you want to come, you would be most welcome to it.
It's at 7 o'clock tomorrow night.
where is it at?
It's at the Hillcrest District Office, Hillcrest Street District. And by the way, it's a long program, so be prepared to have to deal with all the other agenda items.
So we're supposed to stay the whole time?
Yes.
Yeah, I think she said it's like she thought it would be within maybe the second hour.
Okay.
It'll be kind of later on the agenda.
She was
She's a PG
successful.
parent. Yeah.
And she was successful last night in getting the Monterey.
So she and Sally came and spoke during public comment at the Monterey Peninsula Unified School District Board last night. They thanked the superintendent and the board for sending out information to all of our parents, which we did 2 weeks ago, and asked to have the BSMART resolution agendized. And so it will be agendized at that upcoming meeting.
Thank you.
Which is, I just have to say, it makes a difference when there's a broader community of voices, because it was only a year ago that I brought forward a resolution and my board wouldn't put it on the agenda.
Right.
So, you know, it's, you do this, and even when it's a no, it just plants seeds, and it took a year for that to germinate, and now we're having a different conversation than we had a year ago.
So we want to go to
So it
all
makes
of
a
the
difference,
districts.
even if it isn't Monterey Peninsula Unified. So even if it's not an immediately, we're welcoming you in, it matters, and it starts percolating. So we have 24 school boards, school districts in Monterey County. We can go to all 24 of those school boards. There's 12 city councils.
I know some school board members on the, well, Monterey Beach Charter School, they have it.
Yeah. Oh, and all the charter schools, there's
And the
additional
private schools
24.
too.
Yeah.
We want to touch them all.
Yeah.
And this is a huge effort. And I mean, it's as big as we want it to be. And this is an area where you can make a tremendous impact. So we can talk about this. We have only a couple minutes left. But I'd like to talk more about this. Maybe the next meeting would be a good time. We could have Carolyn give an update.
Right.
But this is the type of thing, working with schools, that we could do a lot if we had quite a few well-organized, teams of volunteers. So if that speaks to you, let me know. I'm looking for a lead in this area, and I'm kind of envisioning school by school or district by district so we could work. Then public education campaigns, Be Smart, we already covered that. And there's another one called Speak for Safety. And this one is a California-specific program, and it's the general way of characterizing it as a red flag law. So there's a person who is acting erratically, has some serious issues going on, and they should not have their weapon right now because they are not in their right mind. And so there should be a law, and it is in California, thanks to the Isla Vista shooting in 2004, where loved ones can file a court order. There's a legal process where that person's weapon is confiscated for a period of time. And I'm learning about the intricacies of this law and the due process and all of that. But the point is that there is a law in California, and our program to publicize this law and educate the community about it is called Speak for Safety. It's about the person who is suicidal and should not have their weapon at home. We just talked about that. Or for whatever reason, they're getting fired from their job, and their world is coming apart, and they just don't need their weapon at that time. And loved ones are concerned for their safety and the safety of others. That's our Speak for Safety program. That's another way to get involved. Some upcoming events are listed here. We talked about the boards of education. Monday, if you are available and want to talk more about anything, I'm going to be holding a coffee with a mom in Salinas from 9:30 to 11. And I'd love for you to come, or if you know somebody that couldn't be here today, I would like to chat one-on-one about any of these efforts. I'll be available.
Monday, 9:30 to 11?
It's listed right here. Coffee with a mom.
Okay, where is this?
In Salinas.
Okay,
Yes.
this is for the
Yeah.
Espresso Organics coffee.
Mhm. A big event coming up is the Women's March in Monterey, and we are going to be doing a table there, and I think we are going to get a ton of volunteers. This is going to be a Be Smart for Kids table, excuse me, and a Moms Demand Action table. So sometimes we table just the Be Smart, which is palatable to most everybody. Sometimes we'll table the Moms Demand Action, which can be more political. And we think this would be a good fit to communicate kind of the full range of our message. So we really need to get organized for that. If you are planning to go and would like to help us get our tabling materials set up, or if you want to be there and be a volunteer to help us get that day going and be successful, we'd love to have some help.
Is that January 12th?
It's
No, it's the 28th.
January 18th.
Oh,
18th.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's Saturday.
But once we get through the holidays, it's going to be like that.
I can do that.
And I'll be there too for that.
And then Monterey City Council is voting on safe storage resolution on January 21st. We already had a big win. Seaside City Council passed the safe storage resolution on November 21st. A number of us were there for that meeting. It was really exciting. Susan gave a very, very effective
You
presentation.
did a great job.
It was
Thank you.
really, I was so
Thank you.
moved. And I loved hearing the city council members
give their opinions, and it gave me a lot more confidence in our local government. So we're gonna be doing the same in Monterey, and we wanna, again, this is something we want to be doing with all the city councils. We know, new ones we're gonna be touching soon will be Salinas, Marina, Pacific Grove, and beyond. And then finally, our next meeting like this is going to be in February on the 9th in the afternoon, and it's on a Sunday. These day meetings are really, really tough for me. And I think that a lot of people have a hard time coming in the middle of the day. And I know there's no one time that works for everybody. So I think we're gonna try a Sunday afternoon and see how that goes.
If we don't know what time yet.
I have penciled in 2 to 3:30.
Location?
Yeah, location TBD.
Okay.
I think this is, what do you think about this location?
It's nice.
I think this is a
beautiful
good one.
room.
Yeah.
I like that we can move the stuff around. I feel like we have a much more effective meeting, being able to move the
Yeah.
tables.
Was it easy to get?
Yeah, it was easy. Apparently there's a fee, but they let me off the hook.
Oh,
was
that's
gonna say,
right.
most
incorrect information.
Well, Monterey Public Library also, and it should be Marina, also would waive the fees for nonprofits.
Only if you're only if you're a county organization.
Really?
You know, I feel like this is something that the county we could find a way to sponsor.
Oh, really?
I'll just check with Rosemary.
Okay.
But there should be a way
I mean,
to
it's
make
$20
that.
an hour is what she told me, but I'm sure that there might be a church that, but even churches often will charge you because they.
Did you check with Monterey Library?
No, I didn't.
Okay, because the nonprofit I used to be a part of, we used to hold our meetings there.
Okay.
And Monterey is different, like, this is county
Right.
library system, Monterey is city.
City, yeah.
Yeah, the only problem with that is the parking
The
issues
parking is
around the
hard.
library
Right.
is hard, but, you know,
So so far, this seems like a fairly convenient location.
It's kind of central to
Yeah, that's,
different places.
and when you mentioned that folks from Salinas often will
Yeah,
come
and
to
Marina is
We really,
close
really,
enough
really
too.
want to reach
Yeah.
Salinas. And I mean, I'm even envisioning in the future going to further out. I mean, we
Right.
may want to hold meetings
Yeah.
in Salinas so people from
Right.
Soledad and Queen City, you know, maybe they can come.
Yeah,
to
that's a good
Salinas.
idea.
Yeah. Okay. Any questions? Oh, wait, other actions. I mentioned postcard, and we're not gonna have time for that, but I have them if you want them.
Yeah.
One other thing you might think about doing as an action, think about students that you know, because there's a whole other organization that's a sister to us called Students in Action, and it was started in Parkland. And it starts school by school. So if you know of somebody 14 or older, like a student, and you think they might care about this, find anything, talk to them and see if they might be interested in starting a chapter. And if they are, they go to every town, there's a
I was
website
gonna say,
listed
what's the
here.
first thing for them to do?
They go to the website and it's really clear, I just checked it out last night.
Okay.
And if they need help, we can help them, try and help them. Those will be allies for us. We can do voter registration drives with them. They're gonna be voters soon.
You
And
can
they're
pre-register at the age of
You can
16 also.
pre-register. Yeah, they can be partners that we plan activities with and events. We can invite them to things, they can invite us to their things, and it just diversifies our sort of perspective. And they also have a lot of energy.
Yes. I'm gonna see if we can get a chapter started before the Women's March, because I have some really politically active teenagers that I know want to be a part of it. I already 100%.
Well, that would be phenomenal, because I
So-
don't think it takes very long.
Right.
Even if we just had one group.
Right.
Because then they would table alongside us, they
Yeah.
got their t-shirts, you know, and they don't even have to really know what they're doing yet. They just come.
Right.
And then other people come to the march and they say, oh, they're students, they're self-organized.
I could probably say by Women's March, we could probably have a chapter at Santa Catalina and possibly Monterey High.
Okay, well, let me know
Okay.
if you want some help with that.
Okay.
I can help learn.
Maybe even York too, I could probably
Yeah.
get some students.
And if any of you have thoughts on others, you can be in touch. Leah is our social media lead.
Well, I definitely want to be involved in the student action.
Okay, that's great. That's another role is we need a liaison person. So would you be willing to be that
Yeah,
person?
yeah.
At least temporarily?
Yeah, I'll follow the link. I need to get on and see what they need to do, so I'm able to verbalize the instructions.
So it would be one group per school. So like Monterey High would have a group, and Pacific Grove High would have a group, and NPC could have a group, CSU could have a group.
But yeah, any of the couple high schools. I don't have any connections at Seaside or Marina. I might have some connections at Carmel and PG.
It'd be great if we had, people from school districts that are not represented here.
Right.
This meeting.
Yeah, I don't know anybody in
Ferndale?
Salinas.
Ferndale, Soledad, Gonzales,
Monterey
Chuar.
North Monterey, yeah.
North Monterey High
That would
is
be good.
out that direction.
Yeah.
So if anyone wants a postcard?
Oh, I'm gonna take a postcard.
I'll take a postcard, yeah.
Yes.
Thank you so much. This was really